What up, everybody? Force Season 3, Episode 4 starts out right where Episode 3 left off, with Tommy walking in on Diamond telling D-Mac, welcome back in CBI. D-Mac tells Tommy that he's back in CBI because he put in work for it. So Diamond immediately told Tommy that D-Mac hit a crap game on 27th, the robbery that D-Mac hit previously in episode 2, and not what the bags that were laying on the ground was actually from, trying to make sure that Tommy didn't find out about D-Mac hitting the 9/7s. Then when it was just Diamond and Tommy talking, Diamond took the heat off himself by putting Tommy's attention on King Kilo and letting him know about that situation, and said that's why he let D-Mac back in CBI, to keep eyes on him until he figured things out, and was keeping it from Tommy because Tommy acts before he thinks, despite the cost. So Tommy left to try to figure out a solution, but before leaving, Diamond got a text from Rashawn from the SODs, letting him know that they wanted to meet the next day and that the SODs wanted out of the coalition. So Tommy's first move to resolve the King Kilo situation was going to talk to D-Mac, who was on the phone with Genesis. And D-Mac had also got a new chain with some of the money he got from Hidden Licks. But Genesis told D-Mac if he wanted to impress her, he should get his diploma. When Tommy let D-Mac know that King Kilo had a price on his head, D-Mac said that he would smoke King Kilo too. Then Tommy asked D-Mac if he still had the gun that he killed Mad Dog with. And when D-Mac said he did, Tommy called him an amateur for keeping the gun. But because he still had it, Tommy could work it to their advantage. So he then brought the gun to Vic Flynn to hold on to. And he also told Vic to keep getting information for him on Stacy Marks, and to give her a big check for her campaign that could be tied back to Tommy, to see if Stacy could resist his money. After that, Vic later gave Ray a check for $1 million for Stacy Marks' campaign under the name Pageant Inc. While at the Attorney General's office, Stacy Marks was looking into the street war between the Marquez cartel and CBI. At this point, Sang walked in and let her know that the motion to suppress the drug money was continued till the next day, as he's working first chair in the case and doing anything he can to make sure Ortega gets out. But at this point, Bobby DeFranco came to see Stacy and let her and her team know that he caught a dozen bodies at a Durang frat house, all fat overdoses, and 2 of the bodies were influencers, so the press was going to be all over that case. But the next thing they were trying to figure out was who was putting the Fetty on the streets, and were looking into if it arrived into the city along the same timeline from when the Marquez cartel did, so they could potentially add it to Ortega's case. Harwick also said there had been an increase in fentanyl-related deaths on the north side, keeping in mind that's Vic Flynn and his people's territory. So after finding this news out, Stacy went to press Claudia Flynn for information, when Claudia diverted Stacy's attention to Tommy Egan and her plan to set him up by catching him on tape, confessing to a murder, when Stacy told her to get him to confess to moving drugs for the Estrada cartel. So Claudia's plan was to have Elise record Tommy with her phone talking about dealing drugs. But of course, Tommy caught Elise trying to set him up with the recording and threw her phone in water. A red flag went up for Tommy the second Elise started talking and she said the words pills and coke. But just like with Vic Flynn, Tommy kept Elise alive, even though she tried to snitch on him. When Tommy and Diamond went to meet up with the SODs, As expected, Rashawn let them know that the SODs were out of the coalition and also got slick at the mouth with Tommy and Diamond at the same time. But Malik, Rashawn's number 2, was opposed to leaving the coalition and left a note in the money for Tommy and Diamond to meet him at 8 p.m. At this point, it looked like Diamond was about to apologize to Tommy concerning D-Mac when Tommy told him not to worry about it, that he had a special role for him to play to make things right with him. When Tommy and Diamond met up with Malik at 8 o'clock, he told them that Rashad had a meeting set up with somebody from the Marquez cartel, so if they wanted to make a move on him, they had to do it soon. So Malik gave Tommy and Diamond the address to where they could get to Rashawn. This episode, we were introduced to a new character, Emma Sang, Bill Sang's wife, who's involved with real estate and had just landed a big deal with somebody that Chan was connected with. When Sang told Emma that Claudia Flynn might be in play, she told him he can't let that happen. So Sang's wife is also working with and involved with Chan and the Marquez cartel as well. But Sang hadn't told the Marquez cartel about Claudia being in play because he has a plan to use her as a pawn to get to Tommy Egan once Stacy fumbles the ball with the Marquez case. But Emma warned him that the cartel would take him out if they found out he didn't tell them about Claudia. But Sang plans on becoming the Attorney General and becoming invaluable to the cartel. And if Stacy does fumble this case, Sang will be a big part of the reason why, as the drugs and money were later ruled to be suppressed in the case by the judge. While Shanti is pissed off with Jannard because the fact he's making solo moves without including her first, and starting to question Jannard's loyalty between her and his brother, and questioning if he's 100% loyal to her. So because of that, she told Raheem that she placed her crown on Jannard's head too early, but she's course correcting now. Keeping in mind a couple episodes ago, she told Jannard it looks like she chose the right brother. So with Shanti, her relationship with Jannard is strictly business, a means to elevate in the game, while Jannard has genuine feelings for Shanti. So at this point, Shanti went to start making her own moves and went to talk to Manny Fresh at a street race where Manny Fresh was racing her sports bike. And after, when they were talking business, Manny's number 2 recognized Shanti and let Manny know that Shanti was Jannard's girl. So because of that, Manny said she wasn't going to do business with Shanti. And also, if she saw Jannard again, she would murk him. After finding this out, Shanti was practically ready to end things with Jannard when he told her that he would make things right with Manny. So the first thing Jannard had to do to make things right with Manny was to get her chain back from Joey, the dope fiend he gave the chain to. But Joey wasn't trying to sell his chain back to Jannard, and when he mentioned going to get some bags, and Jannard said something about him getting bags from Yo-Yo. And this is the second time now that Jannard has mentioned the Yo-Yo character who hasn't been introduced yet. He mentioned him before in season 2, before he got back in CBI, when Miguel wasn't messing with him. He mentioned trying to get product from Yo-Yo. But Jannard told Joey Yo-Yo's product was weak and had a bag for him to try, a bag he had cut with the Fetty he got from D-Mac, and that took Joey out. So Jannard took the chain back from Joey to bring to Manny Fresh. But before getting out the car, Gennard thought about taking the bag he gave Joey with him, something he should have did, but he left it there instead, something that could definitely come back into play later on as law enforcement is trying to figure out who's behind putting the Fetty on the streets that's leaving people dead. Then Gennard brought Manny her chain and the money he owed her and showed her he wasn't even strapped. The same thing that Tommy did last episode with the Serbs. So Manny forgave Gennard and agreed to do business with Shanti. But Manny did hint at taking Shanti from Gennard, something we might see come back into play later on. Tommy and Diamond had their meeting with Che this episode, and at this meeting, Tommy asked Che for 3 times the product and told Che that they've never cost him a single dollar, and if they do, Che could do him like the man he just finished taking out when Tommy and Diamond were walking up. Che also warned Tommy that if he messed with his pipeline again, that Che would take out Tommy's family. Either though it wasn't said, this had to be in regards to Tommy and Diamond burning down Miguel's warehouse. And either though they had to pay restitution for it and got a warning from Che, ultimately it pays for them in the long run because they were able to steal the Albanians as customers away from Miguel. But because Tommy was asking Che for more weight in front of Miguel, Miguel told Cruz to find more bodies so they could move extra weight. After that, Miguel showed up at Tommy's crib to talk to Mireya to set up for Miguel, Tommy, and Mireya to all go out to eat for Sunday dinner, a tradition that Miguel and Mireya used to have before their grandmother died. Except instead of going to Miguel's, Miguel said they would start out by going to a restaurant first. But this is all part of Miguel's plan to hand Tommy over to Roberto Ortega and the Marquez cartel. When Tommy and Diamond went to take out Rashawn, the leader of the SODs, to make Malik the new leader so the SODs would stay in the coalition, they cut out Rashawn's tongue for running his mouth to them. A callback to OG Power when Kanan did the same thing to Brock for running his mouth about Tommy. Then they crushed Rashawn and put the gun D-Mac took out Mad Dog with next to him to pin Mad Dog's murder on Rashawn. Something we've seen people do throughout Power and something that normally doesn't end up working out though. Lorenzo pinning Zeke's death on International Guap, and also how Tariq and Tasha tried pinning Ray Ray's death on Kanan are the 2 that come to my mind, and neither ended up working out. So when Gennard went to talk to King Kilo to try to convince him that it wasn't D-Mac but Rashawn who killed Mad Dog, he told Kilo that Mad Dog had robbed Rashawn, and that's why Rashawn took him out. But King Kilo said he would need confirmation from the SODs that Rashawn was even robbed. And that's going to be a problem because later when Tommy and Diamond met up with Malik, Malik told them that the SOD's fingerprints couldn't be on Rashawn's death. Gennard also told King Kilo before ending the conversation that if he still wants to take out D-Mac, they could make that happen. And it didn't show Kilo's answer when Gennard said that. So we definitely haven't seen the end of that storyline. In addition to that, earlier in the episode, when Diamond told Gennard he needed to do something for him, Gennard pressed Diamond about meeting Che, and Diamond said soon. But when Gennard told Diamond that he worked things out with Kilo, and all Diamond did was congratulate him and thank him. Instead of giving him a seat at the table, he walked out of Diamond's barber shop, pissed off. Once Tommy and Diamond took care of the King Kilo situation, for now, Tommy officially introduced D-Mac back into CBI because he knew that D-Mac wasn't going to stop at anything to get back into CBI. So Tommy told D-Mac that it was time to baptize him into the life like Kanan did him and Ghost, and told D-Mac to lock in with him and him only, and when he calls, to be ready to put in work. D-Mac also talked to JP this episode, as JP told D-Mac that he was there for him, and JP also said Kate was still in New York, as D-Mac calls Kate the old lady and said she owes him $20 for playing her numbers. And when Tommy was over at D-Mac's telling him the good news, he got a text from Vic letting him know that Claudia has wings, meaning she was about to get released from jail. This is because after Claudia's failed attempt to set Tommy up with Elise recording him, she ultimately agreed to work with Stacy Marks and testify against Roberto Ortega, while also baiting Tommy to come after her so she could catch Tommy trying to kill Claudia. When Stacy told Vic that Claudia was getting out of jail, Vic was also pissed off that his sister was getting released, keeping in mind that he's now moved in to Claudia's apartment and is using it to impress Ray. So that could definitely clash now that Claudia is out of jail. Vic also had mentioned to Stacy earlier in the episode that he was pissed off about Tommy taking his bars and giving them to the Albanians, something that Vic also complained to Tommy about last episode. He said when his hands were untied from being Stacy's CI, he was going to mess Tommy's life up. Stacy had also told Vic that when she gets what she wants, he'll get what he wants, and that's his freedom back. So Vic realized that with Stacy, he has an out, while he doesn't with Tommy. Keeping in mind last episode, Tommy told him when he can't use him anymore, he's done. But after finding out Claudia was getting released and about to testify, Sang was panicking and called Chan and got his voicemail and told him what was going on. Keeping in mind, he had thought this might happen earlier in the episode and decided to withhold the information from the Marquez cartel. And the episode concluded with Claudia Flynn getting released from jail and now has law enforcement guarding her and protecting her. As Tommy was watching her get released from around the corner and said, "It's time to go terrorize the devil." A callback to last episode when Claudia called herself the White Devil. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.